My name is Jeff Pouliot. I'm the moderator for this panel discussion. We're calling the panel discussion the Preservation Contracting Method and Uses. This PowerPoint and the presentation or the format of this panel discussion was developed by myself and by Aaron Lessard, who works for the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. So he's got the credit up there as well. I'm going to introduce the folks over here that basically are involved in this presentation as panelists. First, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Jeff Pouliot. I'm the Florida State Structures Maintenance Engineer. I have 43 years experience, so I'm not a young guy. I have experience in bridge design, tunnel design, bridge inspection, bridge construction, bridge rehabilitation, and maintenance. I'm also a manager and administrator, and I'm responsible for the oversight of bridge inspection, bridge programming, which includes bridge repair, rehabilitation, replacement, bridge load rating, permitting of overweight and overdimensional vehicles. I manage an aluminum a state aluminum structure shop, which manufactures products for use on DOT projects like bridge rails and breakaway signs. I'm a member of the AASHTO Committee on Bridges and Structures. I'm a delegate to T8, which is movable bridge, T9, which is bridge preservation, which I'm also the vice chair of, T18, which is bridge load ratings and bridge inspection. I'm a member of the AASHTO Committee on Maintenance, Southeast Bridge Preservation Partnership. I head up the group for the National Bridge Preservation Partnership Coatings Group. I'm also a delegate or member of the Innovative Technology Demonstration Group, and I'm the chair of the American Segmental Bridge Maintenance and Operations Committee. And another thing that I get involved in, which will be happening soon, is I do reviews, legislative reviews for Florida changes in the law that affect the department. I think that's the most stressful thing I do. Aside from that, I have no other responsibilities to speak of, right? All that being said, the next person I'm going to cue to introduce himself is Aaron Lessard, who's with the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. And he is not only, I put him as a presenter, largely because he helped develop this whole format, but he's also basically a panelist. So go ahead, Aaron.
Thanks, Jeff. As mentioned, my name is Aaron Lessard. I currently serve as the Structures Maintenance Engineer for Florida Turnpike, which is an operational district within the Department of Transportation here in Florida. I guess you could say I've been involved with structures for about some way, shape, or form for about 25 years or so. During the 90s, I was involved with construction, heavy infrastructure projects, overseeing contracts, involved with field inspection, and actually involved with doing the work in some areas myself. After that, I moved into design. I did some work with design for projects that were mainly retrofit rehabilitation of structures, and also some new structures. And then I get a fair amount of experience with bridge inspection and also evaluation work in the form of doing load ratings for the agency I was working for. After that, 2004, I joined the Turnpike as the district load rating engineer, and soon after moved into my current role as the structures maintenance engineer, where I've worked in that capacity ever since, basically leading a small group of professionals where, in short, it's our job to make sure that all the structures are well cared for Florida's Turnpike here in Florida. We have about 2,400 structures system-wide right now, about 700 of which are bridge structures of all various shapes and sizes. The balance of those structures being sign structures and light towers and large culverts and other type of roadway structures that are out there. They all have special requirements for operation and maintenance. I guess you could say we've learned a lot from our structures over the years, having a population of different types and ages of structures. I guess I would say that just a note about Florida's Turnpike. As I mentioned, it is an operational district within the Department of Transportation. Officially, we're District 8. And so we're subject to all the same rules, regulations, and procedures as any other operational district within a typical DOT, state DOT. I guess I would say in general, when considering being involved in this discussion, I thought we're probably a pretty good entity to share our experiences. The Turnpike is really pretty much 100% contract shop. So we have no in-house crews, no heavy bridge crews, no no in-house equipment, no storage facilities or maintenance yards, things of that nature. Anything and everything that we do for our structures is done under contract in some way, shape, or form. So we're constantly interacting with contracts on a daily basis. So I guess the rest of the details, I'll wait for the discussion, and I can pass it on to Becky. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Becky Nix with the Utah Department of Transportation. I'm the bridge management engineer and have been for about 4 years now. I've been with the Utah Department of Transportation in the structures division for 13 years in various roles through design, inspection, planning, programming, and now I oversee the in-service bridge program. So all of our bridge inspections, load ratings, planning, program, and emergency response. Before coming to the Utah Department of Transportation, I was with Maryland State Highway in the hydraulics division for 2 years, and then came back to Utah. Quick introduction on that, and I'll pass it on to Jeff.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Milton. I am the Bridge Preservation Specialist for the Virginia Department of Transportation. I've been with VDOT for 46 years. I have been involved in most all areas of the bridge division. I've been involved in new design, repair and rehabilitation design, load rating, managed an inspection program. I have done, like I said, most of the duties involved in our bridge division. We have Virginia, a little unusual from some states. We own and maintain about 19,500 bridges, where in a lot of states the local bridges are owned and maintained by the local governments. In Virginia, they're all owned and maintained by the state. Glad to be here and welcome. Thank you.
My name is Awesome Frank Zaman with the New Jersey Department of Transportation, and I've been with NJDOT for about 6 years now, so not as much as everybody else, but it's been a dense one. So I am a resident engineer on many preventive maintenance contracts, and I've also been an inspector on, I guess, push button contracts and time and materials. So in my time there, I've kind of touched a lot of different projects that I've been on. Gerald, who is supposed to be here, he spearheaded the preventive maintenance program at NJDOT, and he's briefed me on all the different kinds of things that we're tackling. That's a quick little introduction for me.
Good afternoon, where I am. I'm Bill Oliva with Wisconsin Department of Transportation. I started out my career as an engineering consultant, transitioning to a structural engineer with the department for about 5 years. I spent about 7 years as the lead hydraulic engineer for WISDOT. I took a break for 10 years and spent that time as a project development supervisor at one of our regional offices, delivering projects from cradle to grave and dealing with many types of let and other types of contracts with locals and contractors. For the last 9 years, I've been the chief structures development engineer in our department. We deal with bridge management, asset management, automation policy and standards, and bridge rating and permitting.
The type of contracts we're looking at, and all these contracts may have different names in different states, but we're using Florida terminology over here. Push button type contracts, which I think are some places referred to as on-demand contracts, site-specific contracts, professional services consultant contracts, performance-based contracts, which in Florida we call asset maintenance contracts, concessionaire contracts, which is public-private partnership, sometimes known as 3P, and state-declared emergency contracts. What we're going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to let Aaron talk about these contracts and what it means in Florida, and I'm going to request a particular predetermined person to come in and talk about what the similarities, differences are, and everything else about these contracts that they want to talk about, questions, whatever. And then we're going to open up the panel discussion in general for each one of these contract types. What we're generally looking to do is find out whether your state does this type of contracting. What is your understanding of this contracting method and how does it differ from Florida and each other? What type of work does your state use this contracting method for? What are the advantages of this contracting method? What are the disadvantages, limitations, challenges actually of this contracting method? And thoughts from industry on this contracting method can be put in the chat box. We definitely want to hear from you, even though you're not participating. And John Hooks will be taking down those questions for discussion. as the discussion moves forward. So we'll be able to address all the meaty ones. He may combine a few depending on how many we get. First topic of discussion, which is push button contracts. I'm going to let Aaron Lassard go through this.
Thanks, Jeff. So push button contracts, I guess that's kind of a slang term that many of us use here in Florida. But I think, as Jeff mentioned, on-demand contracts is a commonly used term. Probably the more technical term, maybe task-driven regional repair type contracts. For us, these are typically shorter duration contracts, typically 1-year contracts that are established to provide a certain type of work on, in this case, structures, whether it's general maintenance, repair type activity. And we can use for emergency repairs as well. But these are typically competitively procured low bid contracts that are established to meet the needs of a population of structures in a given geographic area. Just to give an example, we have various maintenance zones within the Florida Turnpike system. We have 5 maintenance zones total. Our southernmost zone, we have a bridge and concrete repair contract. It's a push button contract. Within that zone, we have about 235 bridge structures of various shapes and sizes, and another 650 or so ancillary structures, whether it be overhead sign or gantry, light towers, and large culvert structures. And that contract is available to do work on all those structures. A little bit on how these types of contracts work. As I mentioned, they're low bid, so the contractors will come in and for a bid price for each of those pay items that are in the contract. So there's pay items and quantities for the various items for a standardized repair method, whether it's per cubic feet of spall repair, per linear foot of expansion joint maintenance and repair, for square footage of coating system restoration, things of that nature. Very standardized types of repairs that are available. And the way we engage those contracts is that there's an item within a contract for mobilization. We'll do a task work order to the contractor to mobilize the contractor, and which usually includes a certain amount of repair activity within a 30-mile section of roadway. And that's what we're limited to for mobilization. It's everything within a 30-mile section of roadway. And we'll pay for the quantities of the various repair items that are performed in conjunction with that mobilization. So I think that's typically how these contracts work. And if I could, that's also the main advantage, is that the flexibility of these contracts. They're on demand. They're available when you need them. You don't have to go through a significant procurement process to access these types of repair activities. As far as disadvantages, I guess I would say that sometimes you're limited on what you can actually do with these contracts. So if you don't have a pay item within the contract, well, you probably aren't going to have much luck using these contracts. You really kind of have to stick to those pay items and make sure that whatever you're asking of those contracts is available within the scope. And the other aspect I would mention is not necessarily negative. There is a management aspect in how you use them to maintain cost efficiency. So usage of those mobilizations, you wouldn't mobilize a contractor for every single repair. Otherwise, it would get rather expensive. So typically the way we use them is we wait for a certain accumulation of repair need within a 30-mile section of roadway. And then we'll dispatch the contractor under one task work order and complete all the work at that point in time. So there is a management aspect that you have to be aware of.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to tap someone else to talk and see how the way they do business in their state compares to what we do in Florida. I understand. I talked to you, Jeff. You said you use this type of contract all the time. Why don't you tell us your slant on this and your thoughts and how you differ from Florida?
Okay, we have a similar process to Florida. We term these contracts in Virginia, we term them as district-wide maintenance contracts. Typically, these contracts will cover most bridge repair and maintenance work. We will also include some roadway items like planing pavement and paving approach roadways and that kind of thing. But most of the work is bridge-centric, if you will. So we have pay items for superstructure items and for substructure items. We award these contracts. They are competitively bid, and we award the contract for 1 year with the option of 2 additional renewals, provided that that VDOT and the contractor is agreeable to these renewals. I think I said this already. Each one of our districts has one of these contracts. We have 9 districts in our state, and each district will have a separate contract for the bridge maintenance work. Some of the typical pay items we would have anything from deck patching to joint sealing, beam end repairs, to substructure surface patching, some steel repairs. So we have a wide variety of items that we can engage in these contracts. And when the contracts are put together, our district bridge engineer will determine the type of work that they think they want to include on one of these contracts. And then that will be included in the bidding documents for the contractors. They are very useful. For instance, everybody knows that if you have to develop a contract from scratch, that's a very time-consuming process. So with these contracts in place, our districts can dispatch a contractor to do, I don't know, deck patching on a number of bridges, and without having to go through a separate procurement process for that. That saves a lot of time. That's one of the big advantages of these. One of the disadvantages is that the unit prices may be a little higher than they would be if you had a standalone single bridge contract. And we also have, pay items for site mobilization and emergency mobilization and that kind of thing. But these contracts, we have been using them in Virginia for many, many years, and we have found them to be very, very useful. And we actually have what we call a template for bridge, on-call bridge maintenance contracts, which we developed so that if a district wanted to procure one of these contracts, they would have a template or a guide document, if you will, as to how the contract should be assembled and that kind of thing. So again, they're very useful. We perform many different types of activities. I think I'll stop it there. And
I'm going to turn it over to basically Utah, New Jersey, and Wisconsin to dialogue any way they want to. Maybe you want to go first, Utah.
So we do ours a little bit differently. Ours are a qualifications-based pool that's selected with our pre-selected prices. So right now we have 3 contractors that are on our pool. And then depending what the work items are and what the individual bid prices are for those, we'll figure out who the low bid is for awarding individual projects or individual bridges. Ours, we've been doing this for about 5 years, so it's still a fairly new process. Our contracts are statewide, and so it's the same set of contractors statewide. And the other difference that we have is we have a type 2 option as well. So we have our pre-selected bid items that go into a type 1, that it's just a direct select based on who's the low bid. And then if we have major work items that are outside of the bid items, we can send it out to bid just to those contractors that are on the pool. And so if there's something that's a little out of normal scope or something else, we still have the option to use these contracts and competitively bid for those additional work items.
Thank you very much, Becky. Awesome. I love that name. I'm sure you have some awesome thoughts on that.
Keeps my enthusiasm high. Thank you. So yeah, New Jersey, there's a bunch of similarities here, but there's also a handful of differences. So the way that we split these up in our state is that we have 3 regions, North, Central, and South. Each of them do a really good job of running these contracts, which we call maintenance blank, then the region name, and then the year. And they typically run for 1 year as well. So for example, I brought one up on my screen here. This is the maintenance timber underwater contract. And the way that the contractors, they're competitively bid, and the way that they'll bid on it is for either a worker type A or a worker type B and the number of hours. So the rate for those hours, and attached to the contract is force account. There's overtime differentials, and for this one, there's like diving crews and stuff involved in that as well. Another difference from how Florida does it is we don't typically have a mobilization associated with these contracts. That, I guess, gives us a little more flexibility to kind of send them wherever we need to send them inside the region. And there's a couple different ones. So each region, the North, Central, South, has a timber, a concrete, and a steel. And they're also reimbursed for or paid on a time and materials basis for bags of concrete they'll do for repairs like that. And I think that kind of summarizes how we handle these. And again, the difference is you call it push button, we call it maintenance blank, then region.
Mr. Bill Oliva, you're next.
So in Wisconsin, we don't really have anything like that. Our work done on our bridges for maintenance related That mostly is done through our LET program. We do have agreements with our counties to do a limited amount of bridge maintenance, which might be, repair of damaged railings, some joint work, things of that nature. We use a local force account type agreement with our counties to do that type of work. But, as far as a unit price, region, or statewide type contract, we really don't have a mechanism like that in Wisconsin.
Can I ask you a question? Do you do a lot of work in-house? I mean, actual maintenance work in-house?
Virtually none. Again, we have agreements with our 72 counties, and we fund it through our maintenance program, much of which is state dollars. And again, we budget for it and then mobilize county forces within their counties to do that work. Not all counties have the same capabilities and equipment, so that may be somewhat limiting, and they tend not to cross boundaries, of their county often.
Yeah, that's another difference because Florida only provides bridge inspection, for the local governments, and we provide replacement funds for their bridges, but we expect them to do their own maintenance. So we could go through that, but I guess we're sort of running out of time. But
Hey, Jeff, we've got some interesting questions popping up, Jeff, if you want to do it.
absolutely, we got time for that. I was just going to recommend doing that. Go ahead.
All right. The first one is someone wanted you to list the standard repairs for push button contracts again. I guess there was a short list of standard type of repairs that will be taken care of by this type of contract.
I think Jeff Milton basically went through the list. At least he seemed to have the most complete list. You want to do that, Jeff?
Sure. Like I said, we have a fairly large number of bridge items, just looking at superstructure items versus substructure items. Superstructure items, we'll do deck patching, epoxy overlays. We even have a provision to do latex overlays in these contracts, beam in repairs, that kind of thing. So we have a fairly substantial list of work that we use these contracts for. And substructure items, we'll do substructure patching, maybe sometimes some scour repair and that kind of thing. So most of the items that you would find in a standalone contract, we will have pay items for in our district-wide contracts. So that, again, that gives us a great amount of flexibility.
Here's another question. On push button contracts, how do you develop the quantities for bidding purposes?
And we typically base that on historical data. In other words, if a district has a history of performing, this many square yards of deck patching or that kind of thing, we will ask the district bridge engineers to provide quantities based on their historical use of that type of pay item.
Another question is for joint repair, what is your unit of measure, considering the numerous types of joints that you may run into?
Typically, we will have a joint repair paid for by the linear foot. But then we will also distinguish the kind of joint repair, whether it's a certain type of sealer or a certain type of joint material. For instance, we have what we call adhesive-based joint sealers. We no longer allow the use of preformed elastomeric seals. We had very poor performance from them, so we no longer allow those. We use in some cases, you may have a finger joint for very large movement joints. To kind of sum up the answer to that question is we will have a pay item by the linear foot for a specific type of joint repair.
Let me ask one more and then we'll let Jeff move on. How are environmental clearances addressed with these types of contracts?
VDOT has an agreement with their environmental agencies that we can perform certain work based on this agreement. Now, depending on how the contract is structured, some of these contracts are set up to have individual locations shown, but most of them are not. They're just district-wide. So if a certain item of work needs to be performed, then the district would be responsible for obtaining at the time and prior to the work being performed, obtain the appropriate environmental permits.
But let's move on for a little bit.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.